Welcome back to Golden State with Mates post-game live after the Warriors overcome the Brooklyn Nets 121-119 at Barclays Center on Thursday. Wow, what a game. Had a bit of everything. The Warriors had to battle back from down 22 early in the second quarter. Sorry. They were down 25-5 to start the game. They were down 35-15 at the end of the first. And then Steph Curry just does what Steph Curry does. 40 points, including... I don't know where I have to rank that shot at the halftime buzzer in terms of the craziest shots in NBA history. And I know there's a recency bias to this. You see a great shot and you think that's one of the best shots I've ever seen. But I think this one might actually be one of the best shots I've ever seen in my life. The thing about it, I think, is, so for those of you that haven't seen it, go check it out. I'm sure you've seen it already. If you weren't watching it live, I'm sure you've seen it across social media. It's like a turnaround deep heave from nearly half court at the halftime buzzer. It's actually hard to explain how good it is. But I think that the big thing about it is that guys can make ridiculous shots all the time. Guys can, heave one from three-quarter court, near full court kind of thing, and it goes in. But that's luck. Right, that's luck. And I think the great thing about Steph and his brilliance, and we know how great he is, and the fact we've been watching this now for 16 years, the great thing about it is it's not luck. And a lot of these great shots we see, we can just put down, okay, that's a lucky shot. That's 1 in 1,000. Like this shot from Steph at halftime is just like, that's not luck. That is just him being the greatest shooter to ever live, him being one of one when it comes to the ability to shoot the basketball. And man, that is literally just insane. That shot was insane. And part of it has to do with the fact it's not luck. So you run out of words to describe him as a player, and particularly a shot like that. I just don't know what you say. It's hilarious how stupidly good that is. It's genuinely hilarious. So wow, what another performance from him, coming off that 28 points, 7 rebound, 9 assist game against the Knicks on Tuesday. Warriors, after that disappointing loss to the 76ers on Saturday, close out the 5-game road trip with 3 straight wins: Charlotte, New York, Brooklyn here. Again, not the greatest opposition. The Knicks are obviously good. You'd expect, going into this game that you'd beat this Nets team, but I don't know if the Warriors were still drunk after celebrating Draymond's 35th birthday on Tuesday, but man, they were sluggish. And the Nets came out really physical. They were hitting shots, and it was just a really weird first quarter. And you saw Steph and you saw Draymond, they were pissed. Steve got a technical. I don't think I've seen Steph that animated in terms of frustration for quite some time. He was being held after Nets make a shot. He's being held as the Warriors are trying to inbound the ball by Keon Johnson. The ref doesn't call anything. Steph basically makes a point and just gets the ball eventually and just runs over Keon Johnson. Okay, and he knew what he was doing. He knew he knew. Okay, I'm just going to bowl this bloke over. I know it's going to be an offensive foul, but that's going to be my opportunity to then have a crack at the ref and be like, what the hell is going on? And Steve kind of did the same thing, and Draymond just wasn't engaged at all. I tweeted out, I think he was still drunk early in the game or something was going on because he was throwing the ball around willy-nilly, turning it over. We've seen Golden State since Jimmy Butler's arrival. They haven't done that. They haven't turned the ball over, and they were just doing that constantly throughout the first 6-7 minutes of that game, and they found themselves in trouble very quickly. And I had a mate of mine actually message me and say, just checking you're all right. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, this Warriors starts. It's disgusting. And he was kind of getting into me there. And I just said to him, I said, mate, we're better than this team. If we keep our cool and start playing seriously, we'll win this game. And that's the thing about, I think, this Warrior team, which goes to signify my growing confidence. And I'm sure the team's growing confidence first and foremost, and other fans' growing confidence, is that, going back 6 weeks or so, I wasn't confident against any team. The Warriors could come up against the Hornets, and I wouldn't necessarily have been confident about it. They could have played anyone. They played Washington, I think, in Washington at one point, or on their home floor, whatever it was. And it's I'm not absolutely 100% they're going to win this game, but I had this weird confidence about the fact they're just a better team than Brooklyn, and they're playing well at the moment. And even down 20, I messaged my mate back and said, if they just start playing seriously, they'll win this game. Like I'm actually not concerned. I wasn't concerned because there was so much time left in the game. Like being down 20 is not good. Like that's a really bad start to the game. But, today's NBA, the way scoring happens, you can be, as long as you're down, that much that early, you've still got plenty of time to make it up. And, Steph's 3 at the half court, at the halftime buzzer there, brought it back to 5. Brooklyn still battled in the second half. They still led going into the fourth quarter. But even then, you just feel so much confident when you can start the fourth quarter with Jimmy Butler out there, as opposed to thinking to yourself, okay, and there's still plenty of chatter about it. There's still plenty of chatter on the broadcast. Like, all right, when's Steph coming back in? Can we, try and go even before he comes back in? And it's like, no, we've got Jimmy Butler now. We should be winning those minutes, particularly when Draymond's also out there. Quinten Post is an absolute revelation. So that was a key part early in the fourth quarter. Jimmy Butler was able to take over, get to the free throw line. I think this was probably the best combined game from Steph and Jimmy. They went for 65 points. Jimmy efficient again, 7 of 13, 10 of 10 from the free throw line. I think he had 6 or 7 assists. So it was really the Steph and Jimmy game. They were huge and ended up getting the Warriors the victory. The final margin of 2 points sounds closer than what it was in the last minute, I suppose. Steph hit that, I don't know what the Nets were doing on that inbounds where they decided to double Draymond and leave the greatest shooter ever wide open in the corner. A real bizarre decision, almost a game-losing decision in that scenario. Steph hits the 3, does the night-night celebration, and then all of a sudden the Nets get a couple of buckets and you think, oh, hang on, Cam Thomas hits his deep 3, which brings it back to 2, and it's like, whoa, are we going to have an issue here with Steph doing the night-night celebration then actually going on to lose? But Steph gets fouled, goes to the free throw line, makes 2, and then Cam Johnson makes a layup at the end, whatever. So the Warriors get the job done eventually. All right, let's get into some of your comments here. Plenty of people in the chat. Robbie says, Warriors got me scared in the first quarter. Jimmy jump-started the team by playing physical and getting fouls. Also allowed Steph to start getting the whistle. That was the difference in the game. The Warriors shot 29 of 32 from the free throw line. They're just the contrast in free throw shooting it's remarkable. Like the Warriors have gone from the worst free throw shooting team in the league, nearly basically by percentage and free throw attempts, to one of the best in the league. It's almost contagious. Like Jimmy's come in, got to the free throw line, made free throws, and now everyone else has decided, oh yeah, no, we can actually do that too. We can actually get to the free throw line ourselves. We can actually, when we're there, we'll actually start making them kind of thing. So it's kind of contagious from Jimmy. Robbie also says GP2 also needs his credit. He does. And I was actually disappointed when he got injured the other day against the Hornets with that collision with LaMelo, broken nose or nasal fracture or whatever. I was disappointed because he's been playing well recently, and I want to give him credit. He's someone that doesn't necessarily get a whole lot of positive chat from me necessarily or fans, but he's been really, and I think it's his offense. I think he's being a little bit more aggressive going to the rim. Like he had that play in the fourth quarter where he tried to throw it down on Claxton, I think, and then didn't get it to go, but stayed with the play and got the putback layup. So his 3 ball's still not necessarily there, but just feels like he's looking to score around the basket a little bit more, right? And that was shown in this game. Like what did he take? 12 shots, I think? Yeah, he was 7 of 12, missed his 2 threes, went 2 of 2 at the line, 16 points, 9 rebounds in nearly 21 minutes. So the plus minus wasn't great. He was minus 15, but I don't think that was necessarily an issue. He was frustrated as well in the first quarter. I think he's a big defender of Steph, obviously, and I think he saw Steph getting beaten up a little bit physically in the first quarter and said, no, I'm not having any of this. And he came in and, him and Zaire Williams got into it couple of times there. So it was a very physical game, even though Brooklyn weren't called for a foul at all until the second quarter. And, credit needs to go to GP2 for how he's been playing recently. AES says Buddy Hield, 23 minutes, 0 of 8, 0 of 5, 2 turnovers, 0 points. I get he's supposed to be a decoy. Some nights he can score, but he does not pass either. Only 1 assist. They need to develop Knox ASAP. It's hard to argue when you see a game like this, but, we have to remember if Tuesday against the Knicks, he went for 15. Monday against the Hornets, he went for a game high or a team high 22. So, look, the Buddy Hield stuff, it's just going to be the same. It's going to be the same stuff over and over. He's going to have the odd good game. He's going to have some really bad games. And for Steve, it's about, playing to the individual game basis. Like, does Buddy have it tonight? If he doesn't, then we pull him and he plays 12 to 15 minutes. And if he does, you can push him out to 20, 25 minutes. And what did he play in this game in the end? 22:53. That's probably a bit too much. But I think if Pods, which I haven't even got to yet, if Pods didn't injure himself, I think Buddy's minutes would have probably been down to 15, 16. I think he had to play a bit more with Pods being out. He had some back tightness early in the game, lasted 44 total seconds, and removed himself from the game and did not return. So fingers crossed he's okay there. There was I'm just going to check this. Anthony Slater had an update, I think, on Pods. Just said, Steve Kerr said, doesn't appear to be serious day to day. So there shouldn't be too many concerns there with Brandon Pajemski, who's obviously been excellent recently. Thanik says, shout out GP2. Yep, absolutely. Thanik also says the first quarter did not happen. It was one of the weirdest and worst quarters of the season because obviously, on the scoreboard down 20 is terrible, but there was also like just the physical nature of it, just the frustration that was brewing among, Draymond gets frustrated all the time, so that's no surprise, but like GP2 and Steve, wasn't a good start whatsoever, but credit to the team, credit to Steph for, keeping their cool and just getting back to the job at hand. And at the end of the day, they're better than Brooklyn, and Brooklyn played well in this game, but the Warriors still too good in the end. Robbie says, when JK comes back, GP2 and Gui take Buddy's minutes, even if he isn't hot. I like how Steve rode Gui in this game. Like, he wasn't spectacular. He only had 6 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, but he's that connective piece that you need. And this is the thing, like, all these role players, maybe Buddy aside in this game, they seem to be just fitting into their role really well. We've seen what Pods is probably the higher end role player, right? The actual legitimate starter. Same with Moses as well. But even off the bench, GP2, like even he is getting an uplift. I don't know what it is. Like, I don't think Jimmy necessarily is impacting GP2 because they don't play a lot of minutes together necessarily. But it's weird that GP2 is just suddenly playing better since Jimmy's arrival. And you've got, Quinten Post doing his thing. I thought QP was excellent in this game. Now, he had a couple of, errors, I suppose. He went 0 of 2 at the free throw line in the third quarter. He missed a wide open layup in the second quarter. I was like, bro, what are you doing? Like, he probably could have dunked it. I was very thankful to see him finally take advantage of the mismatch when he got switched on to, was it D'Lo, I think, early in that fourth quarter. And basically caught the ball outside on the perimeter, but dribbled in and finally took advantage of the mismatch and got a layup to go. So he finished with 10 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists. He's like, what I love about Quinten Post is that he's not afraid. He's not afraid of the moment. He's not afraid of any opposition. And so when he has a disappointing game like he did against the Knicks on Tuesday, like I thought like that was one of his more disappointing games, right? When that happens, I don't have any concerns about how that's going to impact him mentally moving forward. And I think I've spoken a little bit about Trace and his like confidence levels dipping a little bit. I just don't see that with Quinten Post. Like, he seems like a guy who something negative happens, something bad happens, he's going to be frustrated and disappointed with it. Sure. But that's not going to affect the next play, right? That's not going to affect the next game. And I was impressed with his bounce back performance. He wasn't spectacular, but, he hit a couple of threes in the second quarter when the Warriors needed it, rebounded hard, had a couple of block shots, was a plus 13, which was only behind Jimmy in terms of plus minus. So, another player who's just a really good connective piece because he can, shoot, obviously, he can rebound, he can pass, makes the right reads. Like, there was one where he's wide open, kind of on the wing, and then he sees Steph in the corner and he recognizes, hey, I'm wide open. I'm a 40% three-point shooter, but that's the greatest shooter in the world there. I'm going to kick it over to him, and Steph knocks down the three. So things are looking good for the Warriors at the moment, even if, the start of this game was obviously disappointing. Knox says, refs really try to give the Nets the win this first quarter. Then Nick says, Buddy shouldn't be playing 20-plus minutes. It must be so draining playing with a person who continually misses. He shouldn't be playing 20-plus minutes when he's not shooting the ball well, that's for sure. Robbie says, when JK comes back... sorry, I read that comment. AES says, hope Pods is okay. I think he will be. Taylor Made says, Buddy needs to understand understand if his shot is not falling, crash the boards, rebound, defend, get assists, do the little things that impact winning. I feel like this is just him though, right? Like I don't think he necessarily does those things at a high level. He never has. Like this is who you get. Like if you go back to the offseason after the signing, I thought it's a good signing. They needed to replace Clay. They needed to get another elite 3-point shooter in there. But you've also got to understand he probably should be a 15 to 18 minute rotation player, not this, starting level player or a guy that should be playing 20, 25 plus minutes. So like this Buddy Hield, like I think we're still comparing him to what he was in the first 8 games, where like that wasn't him. That was just someone juiced him up for 8 games and said, go off. Like that was not him. I feel like if we just compare him to what his career is, like this is just who he is. That's what it is. Robbie says, I think this is the second game of the season we have won, not leading to the fourth. What were like 1-22 or 1-23 or something after trailing heading into the fourth quarter, which almost all of those games, except for the Mavs game, I suppose, came without Jimmy Butler, right? The game we lost to the Mavs would have been down at the end of the third quarter in that game and lost. But aside from that, all of those losses came without Jimmy Butler, and this team just feels different when you're entering the fourth and Steph's got to get a few minutes rest, but you've still got Jimmy Butler out there to carry the load. AES says, I think their game plan messed up in the first when Pods got hurt to the Nets and the rest took advantage. Yeah, Buddy shouldn't have come in. It should have been, hindsight's a beautiful thing, but Santos started in the second half, which is probably what they needed to do initially. I wouldn't have minded them going big with Post. How about so Pat Spencer played some minutes, nearly 6 minutes in the first half because Pods was out. But how about early fourth quarter where Steve was going? I was like, Steve, what are you doing, mate? This is going huge. It was like Butler was like the point guard, and then like Moody and Santos were out there, and Draymond was out there, and Quinten Post was out there, and it was like I'm pretty sure Draymond was like the smallest player on the floor at 6'6". He was the smallest player on the floor, and he's also the starting center. So I don't know. That was bizarre, but I liked it. FTW Clan says should have been a 5-0 road trip, but I'll take 4-1, 7-game homestand coming up. But I saw that Kerr said Kuminga probably still won't be back Saturday. Yeah, the Kuminga stuff, as I said, I think after the Knicks game, is like I'll believe he's back when he's actually back. Like I'm not. All these reports of when he's going to be back. I mean, it's basically turned from either side of the trade deadline to either side of the All-Star break to this road trip to the start of this homestand. Oh, now it's going to be later in the homestand. Like, I don't know what's going on, man. Like, it's disappointing. Steve said yesterday that there's been no setback. It's just a significant injury, and that these things take a little bit longer to heal. And I think from a JK standpoint, yes, he wants to get back and obviously, help this team first and foremost, and also push his value for his upcoming restricted free agency. But he also doesn't want to come back and play badly because that could negatively affect, obviously, how much money he gets in the offseason. I'm sure his camp's probably telling him that. His camp's probably saying, yeah, you want to return, but you don't want to return, be not 100%, therefore not play well, and then all of a sudden what we can ask of the Warriors in the offseason in terms of a new contract isn't as high as what we might like. So there's a few different factors at play here, but hopefully he's back soon. Robbie says it's crazy how Jimmy's physicality has so much impact. Jackson says, where are we on the buddy cycle with today's OFA? It's just a continuous cycle. Sometimes he plays well, sometimes he doesn't play well. And I suppose you could say that about a lot of players, but Buddy, the feast or famine nature with him is unlike any other player on this roster. A lot of these guys on the roster are multi-dimensional players, so even if they're not scoring or whatever else, they can impact the game in other ways. But he's got to be shooting the ball well for him to be productive and effective, and sometimes he is and sometimes he isn't. Simple as that. AES says, as much as I love Wiggs, Jimmy is the difference between a superstar and an all-star. Yeah, absolutely. His ability to make others better, his ability to play make, his ability to control the game. I'll put my hand up and I'll apologize. I think I was certainly wrong on thinking that, Jimmy might only be a slight upgrade to Wiggs. No, he's a significant upgrade. Even if the numbers don't necessarily show, even if the points per game don't necessarily show it, like you just got to watch the game. Just watch the game and you'll see the difference here. And, you can see with the Warriors record as well. Street Story says, refs trying their best again. That backcourt on Steph is shite. Nets player grabbing Steph. Obviously, they're trying to foul him, but the ref didn't blow the whistle until Steph got out off balance. Yeah, that was probably a foul, poor call. And it nearly hurt them because then Thomas hit the 3 and cut it to 2. So there was a few nervous moments late. But when Steph goes to the free throw line, you're pretty confident he's going 2 of 2. Robbie says Moody has been showing better defense. He needs to take more of Buddy's minutes. Well, Moody still played 29 minutes in this game. I suppose it's going to be just interesting what happens when Kuminga comes back and how that impacts so many different players and their minutes. Vern says, down 5.5, won by 2 at final. I'll take it, but the last minute was nerve-wracking. Robbie says, Gui has really developed into a good player. VT Vino, good job by Kerr tonight. AES says, Gui is a Steph-centered role player. Yeah, that's a good comment to make because I don't think anyone on the opposing teams is looking at Gui Santos and thinking, oh yeah, this guy's a terrific young player and, really wish we had him and, we're nervous when we face him. But you're absolutely right. Like he's perfect to play alongside Steph. He gets the game. He does all the little things. He's like a less, he's like GP2. Like he's not as good defensively as GP2. He's a better shooter than GP2 though, but he just kind of knows where to be, knows what to do, makes the little hustle plays, makes life easier for Steph. I've been super impressed. Like, didn't think at the start of the season, looking at the Warrior rotation, Steve was playing basically 13 guys and Gui Santos was the only guy that he wasn't playing. And then, and this again was, and I've been saying it probably every post-game live for the last 6 or 7, like this is exactly why they needed a 3-for-1, what resulted as a 4-for-1 trade in the end is to get rid of some of their depth pieces because otherwise, if the Warriors still had Lindy Waters and Kyle Anderson and Dennis Schroeder and Andrew Wiggins and not Jimmy Butler, then a guy like Gui Santos is probably playing 12 to 15 minutes max if he's getting a look in at all. So great work by Mike Dunleavy Jr., who I was critical of in the weeks leading up to the deadline, but he made the right move in the end. Jackson says, is JK waiting for a losing streak to come back? He's been scrimmaging for a week, it feels like. Well, it's a little bit disappointing that he's going to come back. Like, I would have liked him. Initially, they were thinking in the Charlotte game, and I thought, okay, that's a good game for him to return because they probably should win that game regardless. It's a bit of a softer one. Now, they've got this 7-game homestand, but it's actually not overly easy. Like, there's some tough games in there, and I would have almost liked for JK to return again in a softer matchup, but now they don't really have that. So we'll wait and see. Empire says, Buddy was about to shoot us to a loss. Robbie says, when JK returns, the starters probably stay the same, but we have 2 solid lineups. Steph, GP2, Buddy. Steph, GP2 / Buddy, Gui, JK, Looney, then Pods, Jimmy, Moody, Dre, Post. Yeah. Yeah. No, I like that. I don't know if there's enough shooting in the first one. You're absolutely right, though. There's kind of like 3 different, like, I think there's going to be 3 different lineups here. There's going to be the starting lineup. There's going to be maybe there's 4. There's going to be the starting lineup. There's going to be the minutes where Steph is on the floor without Jimmy and Dre and Pods. So it's probably going to be like Steph and Kuminga lineups, and then put in who you want around that, like Gui, GP2, Loon, maybe Post if you need a little bit more shooting. And then there's the lineup where it's no Steph, and it's like obviously the trio of Pods, Jimmy and Dre. Maybe JK figures into that as well because you're probably going to need to bump his minutes up close to 30 once he's obviously off a minutes restriction. Post is going to be involved in that as well. That's early 2nd, early 4th unit, which is working pretty well at the moment. And then you got a closing lineup, I suppose, where it's basically going to be the starting lineup, but maybe Kuminga is out there instead of Moody or something like that. So it's certainly, Kuminga's return here is certainly going to be fascinating. It's really the last layer of this team. Like, we kind of know what they are now. And right now, they're a very, very good team. Are they championship worthy? I don't think so, not yet. Could Kuminga be that missing piece to be a championship contending team? Possibly. Could he also actually not ruin things, but make things slightly difficult? Maybe. But I'm pretty optimistic about it. G Yarn says, if Pods is out, should have given time to Gui and more to QP instead of Buddy having it. Yep, I agree with that. Steve says Knox needs to play. Over who, though? Over Buddy? That Steve's just not going to do that. Nato says Gui and Moody are in the closing lineups now. Well, when Pods isn't there. Pods will play over Gui, though, when he's healthy and available. Jackson says, would like to see Loon get more minutes. Draymond at center should be a playoff thing. Obviously their starting lineup at the moment is working fairly well, so it's hard to go. When you're winning, you're not going to go away from it. I do think, I suppose ideally maybe I'd probably like Post out there as another shooting threat. But yeah, I'm going to be, the biggest question mark to me is when Kuminga comes back and all of a sudden you think, okay, my best, Steve's probably thinking to himself, my best 5 players are Steph, Jimmy, Dre, JK, Pods. But can I really play those 5 guys together for long periods when, only one of those guys is an elite shooter? Like Dre, JK, Jimmy, not really getting respected from 3-point range. Pods has shown a real willingness to take a lot of threes recently, which is good and important, but he's still not like overly efficient. So that's a wait and see. Sid says, who do you think was the best player apart from Steph and Jimmy? I think I got to go GP2. I think just his ability to be around the rim, to finish plays. Defense was okay, but I actually think it was more his offense in this game. Like, he took 12 shots in this game. I'd have to look back through his season, but I don't think Gary Payton II would have taken 12 shots in a game this season until today. 7 of 12, 16 points, big on the boards, 9 rebounds. The plus minus, again, I think that tells a bit of a lie. He was minus 15, but I thought he was really impactful. Like Steph was a minus 16 in this game, and yet we know he was the player of the game. So that's just the plus minus lies to you a bit there. AES says such careless turnovers by Dre. Rutherford says, what is the team most winnable the next few games? As in the opposition? Just look at the Warriors' schedule now. Obviously, got this 7-game homestand coming up. So when you hear 7-game homestand, you think, well, they should be winning the majority of these games. Particularly, they just went 4-1 on the road. They're now 10-2 in their last 12. They're 10-1 with Jimmy. So we've got the Pistons, who are firing. The Trailblazers, who are, you would have thought a few weeks ago, oh yeah, that's an easy win. No, they're like firing. The Kings, still around the mark. The Knicks, Cat will return, dangerous. The Nuggets, the Bucks, and then I think obviously of the 7-game homestand, you finish it off with the Raptors. That's probably the easiest of the 7. So I don't know. It's tough because you could actually, it's weird to say, you could actually see them losing to basically everyone but the Raptors, but you could also see him beating everyone but the Raptors. I think if they can go, I don't know, it's tough. If they can go 5-2 on the homestand, I think that's pretty good. I think that they're still going to be top. If they go 5-2, they're still going to be top 6, and they're probably, they're pressing into 5-4 now. Memphis lost yesterday. Houston playing today. Oh, they won. They beat the Pelicans. That's unfortunate. Just having a look at other results. Knicks currently up on the Lakers. Bulls beat the Magic. Celtics beat the 76ers. Hawks beat the Pacers. And the Rockets beat the Pelicans. Rancuno says, Gui reminds me of JTA, and this team is starting to feel and play like the 22-1 Butler, the Otto, but maxed out version, and Post plays like Belly and has the potential to be better. Interesting comparisons there. I like the Gui. I think I've heard, and maybe even I've thought about the Gui JTA comparison before. I don't think that's new, but it's certainly a valid one. There's no doubt about that. I think Gui has a bit more potential to have some longevity in the league. Like, obviously, JTA was great for the Warriors for a couple, but it was really only for a couple of seasons, and now he's out of the league, right? Gui obviously coming into the NBA a lot younger. But was JTA like 27 when he got his NBA opportunity, basically? Gui's, 22, 23. And he's a better shooter. And I think that's the thing that ultimately let JTA down. If JTA was a decent three-point shooter, I think he could have had a much longer career. That just held him back. Gui, I don't think that's going to be an issue. He's a much better three-point shooter, younger, and should only get better. So, there's a chance, he's a pretty long-term player for the Warriors, hopefully. And in terms of your other comparisons, I'm not sure about the Butler, Otto Porter. Like, Butler's a superstar. Otto Porter was a high-end role player, like a very good, valuable player, opened up a lot of things for the Warriors with his shooting, but I feel like it's a bit disrespectful to Jimmy to call Otto. I suppose impact on the team. Oh, I don't know. And then the post Bielitsa one, I think, is a valid one as well. Bielitsa, though, throughout that season, had a tendency to not want to take threes. It was really bizarre. It was like, all right, let me pump fake this, actually put the ball on the floor and see if I can get into my playmaking as like a 7-foot guy. Quinten Post is like, if I'm semi-open, it's going up. Like, he's not hesitating on any threes whatsoever. To the point where he got blocked by Day'Ron Sharpe pretty emphatically on a three-point attempt. I think that was in the third quarter or whatever. Pump faked on one in the fourth quarter and missed a corner three, but that was the right play. Gian says, do you think there are any currently free agents or wave players that could have a GP2S type of development in Warriors uniform where they thrive with Steph? I'm really interested in now the Warrior roster. They signed Pat Spencer, so they're not going to, and I'm assuming they're going to sign Kevin Knox. So I don't think they're going to look at anyone else externally. I am interested, though, in what's happening in the G League at the moment with this Braxton Key guy that is just signed to a 2-way contract. He had 30 points and 13 rebounds in his debut with Santa Cruz yesterday. So shout out to him for a massive debut game. The Warriors lost 116-98 in this game, but it's hard to evaluate their G League roster when all their good G League players have elevated it into Golden State players. Like Jackson Rowe has been around the Warriors for a while now on a 2-way contract, hasn't really played too much recently with Santa Cruz. Pat Spencer, they kind of always need on the team now because of situations like this where they lose Pajemski and they actually need a point guard because they don't have any other point guard on the roster aside from Steph. So I think he's played 2 regular season games with Santa Cruz. Quinten Post is never going to see Santa Cruz ever again in his life. Right? Like, he's not going back down to the G League at any point. Kevin Knox, obviously, was probably their best player in the G League, and he's now on back-to-back 10-day contracts with Golden State. He's probably going to get a standard contract here at the end of it. So the G League roster has been pretty depleted, but the arrival of Braxton Key will hopefully help that out. And he was big yesterday, 30 points, 13 rebounds. And sounds like Taron Armstrong, my man, Australian point guard, he's going to make his debut tomorrow by the sound of it. He has been delayed a little bit because of visa issues, apparently, which I suppose can happen as an Australian wanting to go and work in America. So, looking forward to. I might actually have to watch that G League game tomorrow, I think, because I want to check out some Braxton Key. And obviously, if Taron Armstrong's playing, that sits close to home for me. So I want to be able to watch him as well. Rancuna says, plus JK, the new Wiggins. JK can be the second best player on a championship team. That'd be nice. But he doesn't have to be, I suppose, with Butler. Priscilla says, the only team Curry hasn't had 40 points on is Detroit, who they're going against on Saturday. Well, there you go. That's a nice fact. Maybe we'll see another. Jeez, he's playing well at the moment. This shouldn't. I mean, it's so easy to gloss over Steph going for 40 and it's been like, well, he's Steph Curry. Like, this is what he does. But he didn't have a great first 50 games of the season, did he? Like, he wasn't, his numbers were down, both points wise, shooting wise. And now, on this road trip, just spectacular. Absolutely spectacular. And, it just goes to remind, Steph can have these stretches where he's still, top 5 player in the world, basically. And, he's not carrying the team now necessarily because he's got Jimmy there alongside supporting him. But, man, it's so special to watch. It's amazing. Jackson says, what's your ideal closing lineup? Well, I think the best 5 players, I think the best 5 are Steph, Pods, Jimmy, JK, and Dre. But as I said before, like I'm not sure you can get away with that amount or that lack of spacing with three guys who just aren't taking a lot of threes, nor are they actually, nor are they getting respected from 3-point range. And Pods is still a work in progress when it comes to 3-point shooting. Like he's not a sniper by any means. So I don't know if they're going to be able to get away with that. Maybe having like some of these lineups that get thrown out there, they really like Steph just makes them work because of his gravity, because of his 3-point shooting ability. Like you can have 2.5, 3, non-shooters on the floor, and Steph can just overcome it all with his gravity. So maybe that fact alone will make that lineup viable, but it's going to be interesting to see. I think that's probably their best, but there's going to be games that call for different things, right? There's going to be games that, we saw in this game, Gui closed, albeit again, Pods is out. Quinten Post basically played the entire fourth quarter up until the final 2.5, 3 minutes, whatever it was a plus 13. Had a big, reasonable fourth quarter on both ends. So the Warriors have got options, right? And this is the best thing. Again, they made the 4-for-1 trade, but they didn't deplete. They just went from having 13 or 14 playable guys to 9, 10, 11 playable guys, which is still a fairly deep rotation. Vern says Nuggets will be a fun watch. Absolutely. Anytime you get to see Nikola Jokic and Steph Curry on the floor together, you gotta enjoy that. Gian says, with the current lineup, which combination do you see Knox thriving, developing? So in terms of what minutes should Knox, like what lineups could he play in? I think, he could take some of these Gui minutes. I think he could probably, those early second, early fourth quarter lineups where maybe, it's Pods, Dre, Jimmy, Post, and maybe Knox could be your fifth guy in that lineup. I think he's got a versatile enough skill set, and he's got the size, obviously, where you could throw him into a whole lot of different lineups, and he'd probably work, reasonably well. Obviously, he's just got to find that rhythm back in the NBA and playing alongside the best players, playing against the best players. Obviously, didn't get his opportunity in this game. I still think he's going to get signed to a standard contract for the rest of the season. And you know what? I'd probably try and get him on a team option for next season as well, because, I'm not sure who else you're going to get that's necessarily better on a minimum contract for next season. Maybe there's someone, who knows. Again, if it's a team option that gives you the flexibility to go out and, still explore the market if need be. Rutherford says Nuggets and Bucks should be fun. Yeah, we'll play the Bucks with Giannis, you'd imagine, after he obviously missed that game in Milwaukee earlier. Robbie says, I think we can beat everyone except the Nuggets and maybe the Knicks with Cat. Well, I think we can still beat those teams. Obviously, they present, and that's the thing. The Warriors haven't really played a hugely skilled big man for a while here. Like, if you look at who they've played, Brooklyn, Nick Claxton's not doing anything for you. Knicks without Cat, obviously. Charlotte, Mark Williams, was doing some stuff, but like no one's necessarily scared about Mark Williams coming out and dropping 30, 35 on you. Philly without Embiid, obviously. The Magic, like Paolo is a sort of a big, but he takes a lot of jumpers still. Like he's a big forward, basically. He's not a traditional big center. The Mavericks don't have a big whatsoever at the moment because they're all injured with Davis, Lively, and Gafford. The Kings with Sabonis, again, like Sabonis will always get numbers, but he's only like 6'10". It's not like he's this 7-foot guy. It's not like he's spacing the floor for you either too much. The Rockets, Şengün, it's kind of similar to Sabonis in that manner. The Bucks, they obviously play without Giannis. The Bulls, Vooch. Like I wanted Vooch on the Warriors before the deadline, but like I'm not necessarily concerned about him dropping 35 on me kind of thing. And what he does defensively gives up a lot of the points he does get on offense. So the Warriors just since they've got Jimmy, since they've just decided we're going Draymond as a small ball 5 here, they haven't really played a dominant big man. And we're going to see this coming up, I suppose, with Kat and Giannis and Jokic. That's going to be 3 straight games, basically, between March 15 and March 18, 3 and 4 nights. With those 3 big guys, that's going to be 3 really big tests for the Warriors, and we'll see how they handle it. Jackson says, we're losing the first rounder for next year, so this may be the team again for 2025. You mean as in the first round draft pick? Yeah, that's. I mean, they look like a playoff team at the moment, so I don't think that pick is going to be conveying in the top 10, which is obviously projected. That'll be going to Miami, which is, I think that was the whole point of the trade. It's like, all right, top 10 protected. If things go wrong, then we kind of protect ourselves a little bit here, but hopefully things go right, and things have gone right. And, you might end up giving up pick, I don't know, 20, pick 20 to the Miami Heat. And it's like, if Mike don't leave, you can still go out and get Quinten Post at pick 52. Then I think that makes up for it. I honestly think that makes up for it. Alrighty, guys, I'm going to finish it up there. Been going for just over 40 minutes. Thank you very much to those of you that have tuned in, or if you're watching on replay or listening via the podcast feed. I might go watch the second half of this Knicks-Lakers game, with the Knicks currently up 9 at half. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel already, that'd be greatly appreciated. You can follow me at POK252. That's POK252 on X/Twitter. Warriors host the Pistons at Chase Center on Saturday. I'll be back for a post-game live. For those of you in Australia, AFL begins tonight. Sydney, sorry, not Sydney. Yes, no, it is Sydney. Sydney and Hawthorn at the SCG. Looking forward to it. We're about 4.5 hours away. Going to go to a mate's place and watch that. So the AFL is back. My team, Collingwood, play on Sunday against GWS. Fingers crossed as well to, again, as I said, last post-game live, to those in Queensland with Cyclone Alfred about to hit. So fingers crossed to everyone there. Thanks again, guys.